Anyway, here's my model that I used to find the mass. With a time step of 1 day, this model takes the star position data observed and the model's given experimental trajectory. So the model matches the experimental data well in all cases, but is not perfect. A perfect model would use a smaller time step and include more position data points. In this case, 1 day is a good estimate. I use the momentum principle as shown on the left to calculate net force by using the observed position and the time values to find the change in velocity, then used velocity info to find the change in momentum. As we already know, the change in momentum over change in time is net force. You can see this all written out in the code under the while loop, where I have velocity initial and velocity final to p initial and p final, and then use that to find dp dt, and dp dt equals net force. Now for the basics of circular motion. Net force may be split into parallel and perpendicular components such that F net parallel plus F net perpendicular equals total net force. The perpendicular force points towards the center of the trajectory and perpendicular to the momentum of the star. It is generally what offsets the force in the direction of momentum, which always travels in a straight line, and causes the object to curve. On the left you will see the equations that I used and are reflected in my code. These are just derivations of the momentum principle that we have been working through all semester. When I run the model, you will see a blue arrow for parallel force, a red arrow for perpendicular, and a black arrow for the total net force. Here's what my model looks like when you run it. Of course, when I talk about parallel net force and perpendicular net force, I'm also talking respectively about the change in momentum over the change in time parallel and the perpendicular component of dp dt respectively, because they were equal according to the momentum principle. The physical components of circular motion are just derivatives of the momentum principle. Gravity is the only force acting on the star, so we can use the gravity force equation to solve for the mass of the black hole, since we know F net, star mass, and the position of the black hole as given. My calculations are written out on the left, and highlighted is where I find the code for the mass. You can see that I used the given black hole position to find R and just rearrange the equation. When I run my model, the mass shows up in blue, as shown here. I found the mass to be 3.98 times 10 to the 31 kilograms. So what does it mean? How are F net and dp dt and their perpendicular and parallel components related? They are related through the momentum principle, as I have stated before, so they functionally have the same values. They are not conceptually the same, however, because changes in momentum are caused by net force. There would be no momentum principle without first having a net force, and so we have a cause and effect relationship. You would not call a chicken and an egg the same thing, even though they end up being the same thing at the end. And what if the black hole was replaced and the motion of the star was unchanged? We could not tell the difference between the black holes because F net, which determines the change in momentum and thus the trajectory, is dependent on the mass of the star and the mass and position of the black hole. If the star's position was unchanged, the mass of the black hole did not significantly change.